Here we go. Welcome back. College Football Payoff Podcast, Episode 12.
Week 14.
And getting down to the end of the season now. A lot's going on with speculation, I would say, with the Big Ten. I tweeted out last Friday night, I believe, when Ohio State's game was canceled, that wouldn't be surprised if Michigan decided to have a COVID case outbreak either this week or early next week to affect the Big Ten and the Buckeyes' chances of playing in the championship game. And wouldn't you know, they decided, oh, we have a COVID break. We're going to cancel our game. We're pausing activities this week. So
You called it last week, but Kirk Herbstreit said it last night on the college football playoff rankings reveal, and the whole sports world went crazy on him. So thank God we're not big enough yet for that.
Harbaugh's scared to play.
Yes.
He knows that this game against Ohio State will probably define his career, and he most likely would get fired.
Him and Michigan just need to mutually part ways. Yep. Just Michigan, you don't even have to fire him. Just bring him into the office, send him out there on the podium and say, yeah, we've mutually agreed to part ways. He can go back to the NFL. Michigan can get a real coach.
So, yeah, now if Michigan decides, or I shouldn't say decides, if Michigan can't play Ohio State falls underneath that 6-game threshold to play in the conference championship. And I think that affects them playing. You can't play in the college football playoff if you're not playing for your conference championship.
No, not at all.
Not this year.
Well, yeah. Oh, maybe Texas A&M might have a chance to sneak in there.
I think they would jump over Ohio State if that were the case. Yeah. So Michigan and Kevin Warren could be the demise of the Big Ten Conference this year.
Yeah, and especially Kevin Warren.
Yep, that's going to just destroy football in the Big Ten for years to come.
From wannabe hero to Big Ten with zero representation in the playoffs.
I like that. That was good. All right, so that was really the only bit of news. I mean, everything else pretty straightforward this week. A few games are canceled, but nothing really affecting our cards as much. You want to go ahead and let's recap our week last week. I had 2 games canceled, actually, so I only played 4, of which I went 2-2, so breaking even. But I hit the over 67.5 in UCF-USF. That was, I think, close to 100 points. TCU minus 24.5 over Kansas. I hit that, and Kansas it's tough to watch, but
they're just sorry.
They really are.
They're just a sorry program.
The 2 games I did lose, Maryland, Indiana. I took the over 62.5. Obviously, Michael Penix Jr. getting hurt changed the outcome of that game. And then Nebraska, Iowa. I had Iowa minus 14, and Nebraska was able to cover. So 2-2 on the season. I am 38-34, so I'm still up 5+ units. And the Moneyline Moneymaker was canceled last week, that West Virginia-Oklahoma game.
Yes.
So 2 games canceled, 2-2, staying par for the course.
Awesome. Last week, I gave you guys 5 picks. 2 of those, unfortunately, got canceled with the Charlotte pick and the West Virginia plus 6.5 pick. But with my other 3 picks, I did give you a 3-0 week, second undefeated week on the podcast, but not going to celebrate it too much just because it's only 3-0. Gave you Florida minus 23.5. Hope you squeaked that one in there before the line got too high for you. Bama minus 23.5. That was really easy for an Iron Bowl. And then Iowa State plus 2. Went to minus 2 before the game, so hope you got it, but they would have covered anyways.
I'll still celebrate the 3-0 week for you.
Oh,
that's undefeated. That's awesome. So, you got 2 undefeated weeks out of you. That's good to hear.
27-30-1 on the season, but 15-7-1 over the last 5 weeks. Really kicked in the gear this second half of the season and ready to finish it out hot.
Yep. All right, we got a couple, 2 more weeks of play and then jumping into a conference championships and then our bowls. So just to prepare you for that conference championship, I'm probably going to do every conference, right?
I'll give a pick for every conference championship game.
We'll pick every conference championship game. And then when we go into bowl weeks, it's going to be the same, 1 episode a week, but we're going to do every bowl game from the airing of that episode until the next one. So every single bowl game this season, we will have a pick on. So I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of fights and a few together picks, but It's going to be a good end of the year, and then hopefully by then we'll have sports somewhat to back to normal with basketball, hockey, all that good stuff. All right. You want to go ahead and jump into it then?
Yeah,
I
let's
can
get
start
into
for
it.
you. Okay. I'm going to start off with some SEC action. South Carolina at Kentucky. It's a 7:30 game on Saturday, SEC Network. With this game, it's really just both teams trying to finish the season. I mean, South Carolina, we know they fired their head coach and they got demolished by Georgia. Kentucky, they had to play Alabama and Florida in their last two games. So this is the classic, get to the end of the season, play it, move on, and let's get to the basketball season for these schools. Neither offense is really proficient enough to score a lot of points, and both teams rely heavily on the run. Kentucky basically only runs, and they only put up around 19.6 points a game, while South Carolina, their best player is a running back, sophomore Kevin Harris, who does average 5.7 a carry, and they like to run the ball as well. His backup is doubtful due to COVID, and their leading receiver, Shee Smith, is questionable for this one because of a concussion last week. So Harris is going to have a heavy workload, and both teams are going to just run the ball this game. They're going to chew the clock. Seeing as Kentucky only scores 19 a game, it could be basically a snooze fest, but this is where the under comes into play. South Carolina they're just not scoring that many more a game and averaging 24 points a game. And after both teams had a gauntlet, like I said, they're just trying to limp towards that finish line. They're both beat up. We know the coaching problem at South Carolina. The interim coach actually benched their starter last week, the starting quarterback, and they have a lot of players that are sidelined. So this is going to be ugly for both teams. Running is just going to be the main point of focus, and the clock will seem to fly by. Also, in the last 5 meetings between the two teams, the under has been 5-0. A few more trends that play out to this one. In the last 7 games following a double-digit loss at home, the under 6-1 for the Gamecocks, and the under is 5-2 in Kentucky's last 7 games overall. So for this one, I'm going to go the under 49.
Sounds good. Yeah, definitely an underplay there for two basketball schools.
Two basketball schools.
All right, I'm going to take it down to Coastal Carolina in the biggest game of the week this week, in my opinion, at least the most exciting, where they're going to be hosting the Liberty Flames. Coastal Carolina is laying 10 points at home, and I'm going to be rocking with Liberty here. I'm going to take Liberty plus the 10. Now, when this line dropped on Sunday, it originally was Coastal Carolina -7. Some huge major money came in on Coastal, which bumped it up to 3 points. And originally I was going to give out that Coastal -7 pick. Maybe would have recommended about the half point, but now I've switched sides to Liberty. The reason being is these teams are ridiculously similar in the stats on the field, on the stat sheet, in the coaching staff, all across the board. And what even is at more at stake this year is both of these coaches are on their way out of these programs. Hugh Freeze from Liberty and Jamie Chadwell from Coastal Carolina will both have Power 5 jobs next year. And this is going to be a competition for what Power 5 jobs these guys want. South Carolina is going to be open. Texas may potentially open. This is going to be a coaching duel to see what schools want which coach. So that sticks out a lot to me. Each of these teams have star-studded quarterbacks. Malik Willis from Liberty has 2,040 yards, 20 touchdowns through the air, and 4 interceptions. He also has 807 yards on the ground and 10 touchdowns. We can expect him to go off like he does every single week. And then on the other side of the ball, or on the other side of the field, at quarterback is Grayson McCaw for Coastal Carolina. He's got 1,747 yards, 20 touchdowns, and only 1 interception this year. Both quarterbacks have 20 touchdowns through the air. This is going to be an air raid game, in my opinion. Both these offenses average over 38 points a game, and both of these defenses allow less than 20 points a game. Both of these offenses gain over 450 yards a game, and both of these defenses allow right under 300 yards a game, or right above 300 yards a game. At the end of the day, 10 points is too much for a team this statistically similar. more than 2 possessions is too much for me. When we look at who Liberty's played this throughout the year, they have had 2 Power 5 opponents. They put it on Virginia Tech, beating them by 3 when they were 14-point underdogs. And they also just lost 2 weeks ago to NC State, 15-14. Liberty can play with the big boys. They've already proved it this year. Coastal has been dominating their conference, but nothing has shown me true dominance. Beating Georgia State 51-0 isn't really a huge green light in my book. So I'm going to go give you 2 plays for this game.
Okay.
I already gave you Liberty minus 10, or plus the 10. Give me the over 55 also. These offenses are too good to bet the under.
Yeah, this game, I mean, when I found out last week that the 2 teams were playing, I wanted to play it really badly. We both said that College Game Day should go to this game, and I believe they are.
They should be.
I think College Game Day is going to be there. I see, if I were to play it, I would go with the over. But I think this is a game for me where I just want to watch it because it's 2 schools that you don't really think about when it comes to late college football games, late in the season.
Right.
And it's like both teams are really fun to watch.
Oh, so. and there's so much at stake for both the coaches and players.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be let off the gas here. Even coming off of that 15-14 loss to NC State, which ruined Liberty's undefeated season, they came out and played UMass the next week and beat them 45-0. So they still were playing to win. They weren't, shutting it down, packing it up for the rest of the year. And, I'm looking at the board right now. The line has actually, the overs dropped to 54.5. So
yeah,
give me 54.5 for the over.
Yeah, I'll play
and
the
then
over.
if we look at these ATS records for Liberty and Coastal this year, Liberty's at 8-2 against the spread, and Liberty's at 7-1 against the spread. These are 2 teams that have made you rich. I think it's going to even out. I think Coastal will be 8-2 ATS after this game.
Okay.
So give me Liberty.
I like it. That's a fun game. That's going to be really fun to watch. All right. We'll move on. My next game, Texas A&M, 7-point favorites at Auburn. Noon kickoff on ESPN. The over-under is set at 51.5. And the Aggies coming into this game, they're looking to crack the top 4 and get that, college football playoff spot. Last week, I thought they had a chance last week with Ohio State being idle due to the COVID cancellation. I thought against LSU that was their chance to leapfrog the Buckeyes, but they only could get a 20-7 win. And against a subpar LSU team, I think it kind of hurt them a little bit. The story of that game was the Texas A&M defense, which it held LSU scoreless for 59 minutes. They only allowed 36 rushing yards and 267 total yards. A&M played so good on defense that they actually made LSU's star Terrace Mitchell opt out for the rest of the season. He opted out, but obviously
Yeah.
I don't think it was because of that game, but still.
He got sick of this.
He's like, no, I'm not doing it. All right, but another story in that game was the offense for A&M. It just wasn't impressive. They themselves only had about 260 yards of total offense. Kellen Mond had a pretty bad showing. He completed 11 of 34 for only 105 yards. The bright spot in the game for A&M was Isaiah Spiller, their running back. He had 141 yards in that game. So it makes you think that Spiller is going to be more of a vocal point this week for the offense, and that's always a good indicator that time of possession is going to bleed the clock and keep the score fairly low. So then we enter Auburn into the mix, who they got trounced by Alabama 42-13. Bo Nix was about as good as we have been saying he is in previous episodes, right? 227 yards, 2 interceptions, got sacked 3 times.
It's a liability.
Yep. Their key offensive player is running back Tank Bigsby. I mean, he's averaging 5.5 a carry, but he's dealing with a hip injury. They aren't sure if he's going to be able to play Saturday. Auburn only averaging 26 points a game. But the fact that Bo Nix is going to have to carry the offense against a stellar defense that could only get 13 points last week against another top defense does not bode well for them scoring a lot of points. So I can see A&M relying heavily on Spiller, and the Aggie defense stymies Bo Nix and the Auburn offense. They run the clock, score enough to win. I mean, the spread's only at 7, but I doubt that Auburn will be able to get more than 14 this week. And the trends are pointing to an under in this game as well. 7-1 in the last 8 road games for A&M. 6-1 in the last 7 where they were favored, and 6-0 in games where they are road favorites. We're talking about unders there. And the under for Auburn is 5-0 in the last 5 overall, 4-0 in the last 4 following a straight-up loss of 20 points or more. So we're going to play the under 51.5, Texas A&M and Auburn.
Good. Yeah, I like that pick. A&M's got a lot to fight for. I mean, they're going to be the non-conference champion SEC representative in the playoff this year if they get lucky. So they're definitely going to be trying to put solid points.
Yeah, for sure.
And definitely trying to shut down that O.
Yeah.
All right. I'm heading up to Huntington, West Virginia. This is a team that has been very good to us this year. They've been 5-2 ATS. And we're going to be betting on the Marshall Thundering Herd. They're laying 23.5 points against a struggling Rice team. Mm-hmm. Not only does this Rice team have to travel from Texas to West Virginia, they also have to play in some weather that they're not too typical to, with the cold front crossing over Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia this week.
Big snowstorm.
Yeah, and on top of that, Rice is 1-2 this year against 3 embarrassing opponents. So they started off the season against Middle Tennessee State, lost that game to one of the worst teams in the country, 40-34 in double overtime. Then they went to play Southern Mississippi, which they beat 30-6. Southern Mississippi is on their 3rd coach, allegedly about to be on their 4th coach. And then last year they just got beat so bad by North Texas that I don't see them wanting to play the rest of the season. They have to play an undefeated Marshall team away. Marshall's been on just another level this year. They're on track to win the Conference USA as they should. They've been led by this freshman quarterback that I'm high on. We've talked about a lot on the podcast this year, Grant Wells. He has 1,674 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. In the backfield with him is Brendan Knox, who is also putting up a career year with 744 yards on the ground and 9 touchdowns. And then if we look at the other side of the ball for Marshall, they are only allowing 10 points a game through 7 games this year. That is ridiculous. They're only allowing 259.7 yards per game for their opponents. Marshall is out just mismatching this team in every which way. This is going to be a huge step up for the Owls in competition. I don't think they're ready for it. We've known through the past that Rice is just an embarrassing team. I expect Doc Holliday, the head coach of Marshall, to keep wanting to run up the score, as he has all year, averaging almost 40 points a game. And then if we look at one final metric, is that each of these teams have played Middle Tennessee State. We already went over the fact that Rice lost them in double overtime. Well, Marshall played them on November 14th and beat them 42-14. Mm-hmm. So if we use that one comp game that also supports this, you can catch me at the window betting Marshall minus 23.5.
Yep, Rice is just not good. And that Middle Tennessee State, we know they're a bad team.
Yeah, they're a one-person team with Asher O'Hara at quarterback.
So we know they're bad. And usually when a team can't beat them in regulation, I would fade that team pretty hard. So I like the pick. Good. We're going to move on now. Baylor at Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a 21.5-point favorite. This is an 8 o'clock game on Fox, and the over-under is set at 62. Oklahoma, they have one of the best offenses in the nation and the best freshman quarterback in Spencer Rattler. The last game, last week they were canceled due to COVID against West Virginia, but his last game threw 4 touchdowns, and on the season he has over 2,300 yards of passing. He has a 22-6 touchdown to interception ratio, and the team offense, like I said, best in the country, averaging over 500 yards per game. They score around 46 points a game, which is 6th in the nation. So we know that they can put up the points, but can Baylor score the points? Their quarterback, Charlie Brewer, early in the year, I was down on him. I said how much I despised him, how I hated him. He's coming off of his best game of the season. Last week, he threw for over 300 and 2 touchdowns. They're scoring around 28 points a game, giving up around the same on defense. So both teams, they can score here and there, but they're both dealing with some issues at running back, which to me points to this is going to be a throwing game, and that means the clock will not run as much, and you're going to see some big plays for touchdowns. The junior running back, TJ Pledger, for the Sooners, he's only had 2 games where he went over for 100 yards, and he's only rushed for 411 on the year. On the other side of the field, their leading rusher for Baylor, Craig Williams, he's out for the season, and they're going to have to turn to a backup to head the run game. So Rattler, I think he's going to continue to have a great season. I think last week's game is going to propel Brewer into having another solid showing. So I think points are going to be plenty in this game. The over 3-0-1 in the last 4 for Baylor, and it's 5-1 in the last 6 Sooner home games against a team with a losing record. The 21.5 point spread is tempting, but I think I just got to stick with the over 62 in this game. I can't pick a side. Oklahoma wins, but I think the over is the way to play.
We'll see if they even end up playing 2 with all the COVID issues.
Let's not start with that, please, man. I had the 2 canceled last week and it hurt, but hopefully I can get a full slate once we get going. But that's my play.
Alrighty, I'm taking it down to Tennessee, who's hosting Florida this week. Saturday, 3:30 kickoff. Florida's laying 17.5 points, over under 61.5. And Tennessee's not been doing too well. So it seemed to be what was supposed to be the resurgence of Tennessee football is now kind of turning into, should we look for our next coach? When Jeremy Pruitt came in 3 years ago, Tennessee football started to resurge. Rocky Top was being played. Fans were happy again. Hey, we got a Nick Saban protege. He's going to turn this program around. And they thought this year was the year. They started out 2-0, beating Mizzou and South Carolina. In hindsight, those were pretty terrible wins. And then they lost 5 since. Jarrett Guarantano is just
Terrible.
not a good quarterback.
He's so bad.
Through 7 games this year, he has 1,112 yards through the air, only 6 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. They don't have much offensive production as they only average 20.1 points a game. And then on the defense side of the ball, they're allowing over 400 yards a game. If we look at the other side of the field with Kyle Trask, Heisman front runner, he simply just averages 369 yards a game through the air.
Yep.
So there's going to be a huge mismatch with Florida's offense and Tennessee's defense, and pretty much just the rosters all around. I expect Guarantano to throw a lot of picks to a very much improved Florida defense over the last couple games, who only allowed 27 points in their last 2 after allowing almost 30 points a game through the first 5 games of the season, 6 games of the season. And Dan Mullen wants to make sure Kyle Trask has another Heisman performance. Last week, Florida was losing to Kentucky at half 10-7. Now they came out and still won by 24 points, giving us a cover for last week, but you can't expect them to start that slow this week. Dan Mullen's not going to stand for that. They're going to come throwing at this Tennessee defense. And then you can't expect Guarantano to be able to keep up with that. And with Trask being first in the Heisman race, he's going to have a huge opportunity against Tennessee to widen his lead before they have to go play Alabama in 2 weeks. I'm really looking forward to that game, as that's going to be the Heisman duel of Mac Jones and Kyle Trask. These two guys are going to be dueling it out through the air in the SEC Conference Championship. But Dan Mullen is going to want to give him that little bit of leeway prior to that game. I just see him throwing all over this defense. I see Tennessee as a team that does not want to play. And Tennessee also lost to Kentucky 34-7 this year. Why is Tennessee's line 7 points less than what Kentucky's was? I cannot tell you, but I just see Florida starting a lot hotter than they did last week and not letting up just so Kyle can win this Heisman. Give me Tennessee, or give me Florida minus the 17.5.
Florida minus 17.5 is huge. One thing though with that Florida team is Kyle Pitts, their tight end.
He was back last week with 99 yards and a touchdown. He's a top 10 pick.
He's definitely a top 10 pick. He's going to be a force in the NFL too.
Yes.
You line him up. I mean, you can line him up at tight end, but if you put him even as a big body receiver on the outside, if he can get faster,
and he could block too.
Yeah, he's going to be a good NFL player. I do like the Florida pick just because Tennessee is so bad. All right. Moving on, we're going to go Big Ten action. Nebraska at Purdue. This is a noon kickoff on the Big Ten Network. Purdue is a 2-point favorite. The over-under is set at 61.5. Nebraska has had a pretty tough go this season. I mean, they're having major issues at quarterback. Their defense is definitely not living up to the Cornhusker standard. I mean, they're giving up 32.6 points per game with 220 yards through the air. Purdue scoring around 28 a game, and they are slinging it. They throw for over 300 yards per game. That right there is the very first advantage. Purdue right off the gates. When the Cornhuskers give up their points, their offense is just unable to battle back and keep them in the game, which is putting more and more pressure on that already unreliable defense. The quarterbacks, as we mentioned, Adrian Martinez and Luke McCaffrey they're playing musical chairs. Last week, I think they were alternating series, and they did have an issue with their center. So their center was having bad snaps in the shotgun. A few down, actually a few over Adrian Martinez's head. The announcer said, the coaches say bad snaps are because of his turf toe. So if you knew that he was going to have bad snaps with turf toe, why is he still in the game? They pulled him after his fourth bad snap.
Yeah, which is 4 too many.
Yeah, and the quarterbacks are they don't have an identity. They can't get into a rhythm. I don't think either one of them is showing if they should start or even play for that matter. Many people would say that this game is close to a pick 'em, and in that case, I would have to say that Purdue just looks more impressive this year. Nebraska has been unable to stay positive. They continue to get in their own way. In head-to-head matchups, Nebraska is just 1-4-1 against the spread in the last 6, and Purdue tends to play well on their home grass. Defense wins games. Purdue has the better defense this year. Mix that in with the struggles at the quarterback position for Nebraska. I'm taking Purdue -2 here, both on Purdue having a better defense, but also because of the issues going on within the Nebraska football team.
Yeah, I don't know if Scott Frost has found his home there.
No.
It was a good story in the beginning with bringing back the old alumni, but
it's time to find an identity because Nebraska football, I think, hard-nosed defense, a solid trench fight.
You can't get recruits there.
No,
I mean,
no
Scott Frost was able to get
Nebraska.
guys from Central Florida.
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't think it's working out for him down there in Lincoln. So I think it's almost going to be time for him to move on.
Yep. All right. What do you got next?
All right, for my last game of the day, I got Clemson heading down to Virginia Tech for a Saturday 7:30 kick. Clemson's laying 22 points, over under 67. Season's over after this for the ACC. They came out earlier this week and declared that this will be the last week for their regular season play, meaning Clemson and Notre Dame will be automatically put into the ACC championship. But that was been full throttle. He was still heated after FSU canceled the game on him the day of the game. He took it out on Pitt last week, where they pretty much scored at will and intercepted an experienced Kenny Pickett quarterback 4 times. In that game, Trevor Lawrence just went off 26 for 37, 403 yards and 2 touchdowns in his first game back since the injury. A lot of people thought he was going to be rusty. He proved them wrong real easily. And then, like we said earlier in this year about Virginia Tech, they do not have an identity. They're a team that scores 33 points a game but allows the same amount of points per game. They run for more than they throw, only averaging less than 200 yards throwing per game. Not a good sign. If we look at the other side of the field, Clemson holds their opponents to under 300 yards per game. Now, Virginia Tech is averaging 250 rushing yards a game. Clemson's allowing 102 rushing yards a game. Virginia Tech is not going to be able to rely on the run like they have most of the season. And with 3 straight losses, many teams have found them out. I mean, Liberty beat them. Like we said earlier, Miami beat them by 1. And Pitt just went out and throttled them a couple weeks ago. So if we have this comparison game where they lost to Pitt 47-14, last week Clemson went and beat them 52-17, scoring at will. They could have put. I watched that. Did you watch that game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched that game. They could have put 70 up if they wanted. Dabo kind of being a little nice. I don't see that happening this time. Virginia Tech's community is fuming at Justin Fuente right now. They're calling for his head to be fired. I don't think they'll also be able to stop Travis Etienne either. You can pencil me in for rushing to the window at Clemson minus 22. It's a safe bet on both sides of the ball.
Yep. Yeah, I'd take Clemson in a heartbeat. Virginia Tech, like we say, all season we haven't seen what Virginia Tech can do. We don't know what kind of a team they are. So
10 games into the season, I don't think they're going to figure anything special out. That's
and
for sure.
think because Notre Dame does not play this week, right? I think
they're off. Yeah,
they're off this week.
They're waiting.
So they're going to be watching that Clemson game. I wouldn't be surprised if Dabo decides to really run up the score in this one to kind of strike some fear into Clemson, saying like, "You guys got us the first time. Well, here's Trevor Lawrence."
Well, and also I don't think they'll expose much of their playbook with Trevor Lawrence over this game.
No,
I do think they'll just naturally be able to air
they're
it
gonna,
out with
yeah,
simple
they're gonna
plays
let
and just
him,
run it.
yeah, they're gonna let him throw the ball and say, you didn't have to face this last time. Now you do.
Man, and I really think, we've said earlier in this podcast, Mac Jones, Kyle Trask, 1-2, 2-1 for the Heisman. If Trevor, that's what I said.
You've said it. I haven't.
True. But if Trevor Lawrence actually got to play a full season this year, come on.
Yeah.
Like, we all know this is the best quarterback in the country. 19 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 46 points a game.
Yeah, he just needs to cut his hair. All right. Moving on from that, I'm going to stay in the Big Ten. We got Indiana at Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a 14-point favorite. 3:30 kickoff, ABC. Over-under is set at 45.5. But to start, it was just a horrible break for Indiana last week and actually for college football. They lost their star quarterback, Michael Penix Jr., to a torn ACL. He has been so much fun to watch, and he is irreplaceable on that team. It's tough to see that happen to a star quarterback, but the Hoosiers, they do have a pretty good backup. Former top 10 high school quarterback and a Utah transfer, Jack Tuttle. Now, he's obviously not going to show up like Penix did, but one thing isn't common in both of those. They have pretty good, exciting wide receivers, and one of those being Ty Freifogel, who had that breakout game against Ohio State. So Tuttle, he has weapons, and yes, they are going up against statistically the best Big Ten defense in Wisconsin. But if you look deeper into those games, Wisconsin has played 3 games. Illinois, Michigan, Northwestern. Those 3 teams are not offensive juggernauts.
No, we thought Northwestern was for a little bit until they got railed by Michigan State last week.
Yes, and we know Michigan's trash, and we know Illinois is just not a good football team. So right there, best Big Ten defense, arguably playing 3 of the worst offenses. But Wisconsin is Wisconsin at the end of the day. It's a solid football team, just like every other season. And their quarterback, Graham Mertz, he is outstanding. And their offense can be explosive. In fact, both offenses in this game are explosive. Wisconsin's second, Indiana's third in the Big Ten in scoring. So even though Wisconsin's last game was, it was a 17-7 loss to Northwestern, I'm going to chalk that one up as a bad game against a bad matchup for Wisconsin. They have gone over in 2 of the 3 games this year, and Indiana has gone over in 4 of the 6 this year. And I think we can expect Freifogel and the other offensive monsters on the Hoosier offense to take somewhat of a load off of Tuttle and produce some big-time scoring plays for him. Those little slip screens, underneath routes, where he doesn't have to do too much, get it out of your hands, get it to the playmaker. But I think 45.5 is just too low. And if you ever see a number that's where it's 45 or 48 or something, you got to take a hard look at the over. And I see this total. I see top 3 scoring offenses in the Big Ten. I'm going to play the over 45.5 in this game.
I like it.
All right. What do we got next? Are you done?
I'm done.
Oh, okay. So that means we can hopefully play a moneyline money maker this week. I got Penn State at Rutgers. Penn State, 11-point underdog or 11-point favorites. Sorry, it's a noon kickoff on FS1. Penn State is terrible.
Yeah.
They beat a shitty Michigan team last week, which I picked, but Michigan is not that good either. And James Franklin is just simply a loser. He is only in the position at Penn State still because of that one play against Ohio State a few years ago, the walk-off blocked field goal. That's it. Rutgers, on the other hand, I mean, they've looked really good this year, and they're much improved this season. They're known to throw in those trick plays. They have them every week up their sleeves, something new. And I know Penn State's a one-win team, and this is a letdown spot for them. They're coming off their first win of the season last week. They're high. They're ready to go. They think, all right, we're going to Rutgers. We can string 2 in a row. But Rutgers isn't a team you want to play in a letdown spot. They're going to walk away with the win in this one. The Scarlet Knights, they're just more invested in their team. We saw that with that lateral play that was called back because the guy was down.
Yep.
And the receiver they threw a forward pass, and that receiver who threw it was crying on the sideline when they weren't going to win. That's investment into the team. The culture's changed there. And Penn State is depleted at running back. They've just been disappointment all year. They've had they had the college football playoff hopes early in the year. Those went out the window. The team just looks defeated in all aspects. I'm going to ride with the team that seems like they're turning a corner here. And we're going to go Rutgers plus 300 on the money line.
I like it. I mean, I can't bet Penn State in this spot, especially laying 11.
Yep.
I mean, what do they have to play for?
Exactly.
They've only beat Michigan, who didn't want to play more than them.
Yeah. So just a quick little thing. Last week, I did play 2 money lines in the Big Ten. One was the Penn State against Michigan. The other one was that Michigan State against Northwestern. So I hit both of those. So I feel like I have a pretty good read on the Big Ten. So hopefully this is the start to a new streak in the Moneyline Moneymaker. But that's it for me. And you're done too?
I'm done.
All right. Let's go over ours. I'll do mine real quick. South Carolina, Kentucky, I'm taking the under 49. A&M and Auburn, I got the under 51.5. Baylor, Oklahoma, we got over 62. Nebraska and Purdue, I'm going Purdue -2. Indiana, Wisconsin, over 45.5. And the Moneyline Moneymaker is Rutgers over Penn State at plus 300. So I'm playing some totals this week. What do you got?
I like it. Big Country, Week 14 card. I got first Coastal and Liberty over 54.5. Along with that, I got Liberty plus 10. I got Marshall minus 23.5 against Rice. Florida minus 17.5. And Clemson minus 22. Let's have a 5-0 week.
Yes, I like that. Let's have every game get played on our cards. Let's not lose a single game. We'll come back next week. We'll have no losses. You guys will be feeling good about it, and hopefully you'll be sharing us to all your friends because we are, as you know, we're always on YouTube. You can like, subscribe, comment, anything you want. We'll help you out if you have any questions. Share that with your friends. But as of last week, we're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're on Buzzsprout. All those links are pinned on our Twitter account. Be sure to get on there and subscribe on iTunes, follow on Spotify, whatever you need to do. And every time we drop an episode, you will be notified. It'll download to your phone, and that you don't have to do anything else. On those 2 platforms, if you could, drop us a 5-star review. And we also tweeted out something. If you like, subscribe, drop some reviews, let us know.
We'll give you a shout out.
We'll send you some stickers. Hey, we'll do whatever we can, but continue to like, subscribe, just pass it on.
Subscribe,
to everybody, man.
rate, review, most of all, share.
Absolutely. We appreciate everyone for listening. Follow us at The Accountant Bets. That's me.
Follow me at Big Country Bets, and follow the pod at CF Payoff Pod.
Yep, and that's about it. That'll wrap it up. You got anything else?
Right. Nope. Thank you guys for listening to the College Football Payoff.
Yes. Happy weekend and happy betting.